Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of The X Button. I am one of your hosts, Alejandro. With me is the Heartless.
Paul. Hey, everybody.
How you doing, Paul? Finally, I got
outside of context, that sounds really rude.
Yeah.
But because we know the context, thank you.
Yes, but I would have called you the giant Heartless because I haven't done a size joke for a while.
Fair point. Man, what a freaking week for news.
Yes, especially like so many broke like within a small context, and we're recording early because for some international listeners, happy Semana Santa / Easter week, where we get a long vacation, not just Good Friday. So I was like, we gotta record early, and you have a bunch of stuff that you need to do, like the day we usually record. So I was like, let's do it. You wanted to record the day we usually post, but I was like, let's just do it early, and we're sneaking it in. And
I'm glad that we're actually knocking it out a little early, but to anybody listening, my parents are moving and I need to take a bunch of furniture from them, and I already have a lot of furniture I need to get out of my house, so it's gonna be a bit of a stressful process. But
wait, you're moving from your house?
No, my parents are technically moving. They've already moved, but they just sold their house, so now they have to pull all the stuff that's still in it out of it, and there was a lot of stuff that both I wanted to take and a lot of childhood things that I kind of put off taking. Mm-hmm. And now they're like, all right, well, you got a week, and I'm like, gosh.
Yes.
So
good thing your wife's back. It's not just gonna be you doing it, right?
Yeah, she's working on her office space, I'm working on mine, so we're kind of like tag teaming that process, and we're getting some good progress going. We're happy. It's just tiring.
Perfect. Yeah, well, I hope you have some fun moving that stuff, but we can get this little escape for a little bit early down in the week, because this is the X Button. This is the X Button podcast, or gaming podcast that posts every Wednesday now from 2 p.m. onwards, God willing, available in the YouTube channel Escape Media, as well as most audio services around the world. So think Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at anchor.fm/escape-media. And if you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. We're posting it a little later just so I can add some timestamps. I decided, let's put some timestamps into the show, so I want to like re-listen to the show and get them down, so I just need a little bit more time for that.
That'll help anybody that really wants to listen to a specifically spicy take or something that we
exactly
really
it just makes it easier, especially when you go to YouTube. It gives you the chapters as long as you put it in the description, so it's easier to just click where you want to listen to something specific. So I want to get just a few, because I have to re-listen to the show, because I usually don't. I just edit it and post it. I want to listen to it now and post it. So expect some timestamps going forward. I used to do them, and then I just got lazy, but I'm actually gonna do it for
your priorities were different.
Yes.
I refuse to call you lazy, because you do more work than any of us in that group.
Yes. At the same time, there's a tinge of laziness that can hit us, like, do I have to listen to this? I don't know if I'll have the time, because I was thinking, because posting it on the AMs, it was like, I have to wake up and it's already alive. So at least this gives me more time, because I also do other stuff. So, but yeah, so Paul, enough of that preamble. What have you been playing? Which some of this stuff we played together, and I think we have to jump straight into one of these.
We do.
You finally finished the Destiny 2 raid after a full year.
Well, wait a second. Didn't I do one the last week? And now this is.
I said full raid from beginning to end, not segmented.
Good point, actually. Yeah. So that has been an experience, and my goodness, just the feeling of like camaraderie that you kind of build up over. Just like realizing that you're struggling on something, and then your buddy's like, hang on, I got it, and then they just jump in and save your life or whatever you're doing in the moment,
and that they know what to do, that you don't feel like you're playing with people that don't get it, or spending too much time teaching that just drains you. That's what I always told you. It was like, you have not had the experience of just running with the people that know. Raids don't usually take 4 to 5 hours like other previous times that have just ended in misery. These we did it in 30 minutes, literally 30 minutes with people that knew.
It is honestly surprising that we were able to knock it out so quickly. We were just sitting there, and then by the end we were fighting the final boss, and somebody was like, so I think we're at like under 45 minutes, and I went, what?
Yep.
I was like, gosh. And like, granted, Last Wish took a little bit longer
because we were learning a few other stuff.
Yeah, so there was like a process, but the fact that Vault of Glass went through so quickly was really nice, especially after that being the specific raid that I had so much trouble on.
Because that's the only one you played.
The ultimate catharsis in doing what thousands upon thousands of Destiny players have never been able to accomplish, getting the RNG, following, just distilling it straight into my brain through that chest at the end of Vault of Glass, and getting the Vex Mythoclast on the second time I ever did Vault of Glass.
And in your first full completion, because the last time you only jumped into the last encounter.
True. So first full completion, actually getting Vex Mythoclast, which to anybody listening in is one of the hardest exotics to get within the game.
Because the drop rates for that are just bugged.
Yes.
They simply are. So
and then immediately after that, we went through the Last Wish raid, which was really fun. By the end of it, I had this climactic moment. Unfortunately, nobody else could hear it, but we had to spin using our supers, and I played the Beyblade theme song, which is full of electric guitar, and it was really climactic and beautiful. And then upon finishing that one, I got the other really rare exotic.
But to not want to rain on your parade, that one has been buffed so much that you actually always get in your second try.
That's nice.
Yeah, so
all right.
No, like in the second chest that you open. Whether it's in the 2 chests you open within the encounter, or you do 1 chest and then do the raid and do the other one. Okay. So you basically just save yourself from having to do another Last Wish run.
Well, that makes me feel a little less special, but I'll take it.
The fact that you got RNG to get both 1K Voices and Vex Mythoclast in the same day that we both raided.
I know that.
It's like, that's like, part of me is like, obviously I was legit salty that you got Vex, because me and one of our Sherpas, Firestorm, we both have run this raid many times and we haven't gotten it. And then another Sherpa, Spartan from our clan, he has gotten so many Vex drop on him continuously, and he like loves just parading them around. Like like, and because they're roommates, he proved, like, he was like, yeah, he actually did it, because he was like, yeah, because you can easily joke, you have the Destiny app, you can like transfer something in and be like, look, I got this, but no, he got it drop. So yeah, but this was the moment I was waiting for you specifically, because to me, Destiny comes together as a game through the raids.
Yeah.
After everything is said and done, it's like the experience of going through a raid is unlike any other co-op game in any shooter.
I understand a lot better now what you're saying, or what you have been saying, where it's like, that is the end all be all. That is why people keep coming back to the game, because that cooperation and capacity for both growth personally and growth with like a group is unmatched since like all of the MMOs from days past. And just the stuff that you can do, and knowing that your role is important, and if you were not there, none of this could have happened, is really awesome. Because I'm like, man, I feel like I'm an average player, but the fact that like I was one of 2 Titans, and I was the only one with a bubble. So like the fact that what I could put down was what was really helping us was like made me feel really happy. And it was just a really great time.
Yeah, it's like legit co-op. It's like, some people don't think about how much co-op is just you playing with someone and just chatting about life.
Yeah.
You remember how you saw like sometimes those E3 presentations of everyone being like, here's the demo for co-op. It's like, look, there's that enemy over there. And everyone's like, no one does that when they play co-op. And that's true, except in Destiny when you're doing a raid. It's rare for like the Vault of Glass encounter is the early 2 encounters are the only ones that you can be chilling and just do it because they're pretty easy. But it's when you have to do call outs, that's when it gets serious. So
and that was just amazing. But then also we did the legendary.
Yeah, we beat the legendary campaign separately from each other.
We did it very differently. You were able to complete it solo, and I did it with 2 people. And that mission just sucks.
Yeah,
I did not enjoy that. But
I'm so glad you're here to see this. How many times do you hear her say that?
Too many times. Well, fortunately, like once I got everybody in, I think beat that segment. Actually, no. So I played with, I think he's got to be like Eastern European member of our clan, that normally isn't very on at all, and he happened to be on and was like, "Yeah, I'll help you out," and I like could not understand him very well at all because his accent was so thick that I was like pantomiming, or like I kind of understand his inflection, so I think I understand what he's saying. But he got me through the first and second parts of that boss fight, and it was at the end that like he didn't know what to do, so we were struggling first on like how we thought we had to kill all 3 of the fake Savathoons before it would pop, but turns out you just have to kill one, bring it to the center. So we
that makes it quicker.
Failing over and over again, and then by the end of it, like he was doing his best, but he just wasn't really doing it there. But fortunately, we had 2 other people later on that day join me, and we struggled with it for about 4 hours.
Yeah, that's insane. Mine took an hour.
But we finally got it. I think so. The problem is that I think you or somebody else was telling me that if you have a full squad, it like beefs her up immensely.
Yeah, like the DPS is like, it takes double the DPS that it would usually take if you do it with someone. Like the only advantage of doing it with more people is that you get revives, but the game scales up because Bungie applied what they did with Halo Reach. That was the last time they did co-op, that the more players you had in your team, the harder the game got. Because they didn't do scaling in Halo 3. So what that happens is that if you had a full team of 4 players, you would breeze through that campaign even on Legendary. Because it didn't scale properly. So
it was definitely a challenge for sure, and I feel like I had some thoughts about their choice of how fast she can do some of her moves, because we watched her do the lightning move. And then immediately went into another one that was like, that should have a cooldown or something, lady.
But that's the thing, like it's meant for you to be wearing your glaive and use the shield of your glaive because it covers literally everything that she throws at you. That was the key.
Seen the shield do all that much, and I've never really been able to mess with it long enough to like, how long does it last? So how useful is it?
For the shield to work, you have to shoot it first. You have to hit an enemy to build a shield. If you start like blocking before shooting something, it doesn't work. Yes, it's in the middle. You see the reticle and it keeps filling. So you have to get at least 2 to 3 shots that hit the enemy, and then that's when you can start like using the shield.
And then it just drains with the reticle.
Exactly. And if you keep as long as you keep shooting the glaive, even while you're in shield, it will keep filling up. That's the one thing that helped me solo it. Yeah.
Then. I know some there's like a mod on there that lets it, like when you are deflecting damage, you do more damage or something.
Yeah, you had that. You also have suppressing glaive, which is really good because you can hit like those stupid wizards that you have to kill like when you go around to get the buff to kill Sabathoon. Then when you have suppressing glaive, they will stop shooting at you because they're suppressed. So you just shoot them once, you get class, and they just start mailing them. And then if you have the proper either boss spec or major spec, both work, it will just melt them quick.
So boss and major both work on the orange bars? Okay, that makes sense then. So I wasn't throwing that one away. I was like, gosh, is that why it sucked so much? But yeah, so awesome. Overall, that was just an awesome experience, and I want
and with our same raid team, with your friend Duchess, actually, that you a longtime friend of yours that I think I told him to listen to this podcast, so I wonder if when he mentioned that in our chat, he was talking about our podcast. We were doing the Bow of the Disciple raid yesterday. Yeah. And we got an encounter farther than when we both did it. Okay. When we had that Sherpa, the caretaker.
That's what it was called. Yes.
Caretaker encounter, so easy. Super easy.
I had a feeling, because the only reason we didn't get it is because we ran out of time when we were doing it that way.
Absolutely. It's like, I did the ogre with our friend Mike, the boy guns. He is also one that helped you with the with the Sabathun final mission. I did the ogre. You just have to like get close to the ogre for him to like do like a smash attack, and then that's when you shoot in the face, and then someone has to hit him in the back. We got him so stunned that even Duchess and Spartan, they were like, man, you guys are doing stunned so well. It's like he's not even here yet. So it's a really cool raid. The encounter that we are right now sucks. My God, it's a mix of the Shuroshi encounter and the first encounter from Bao, both together. Of like learning all the symbols, but also having to rush through like 3 different rooms of a million ads, and having to cleanse and reading symbols and having an artifact that you run left and right. It's crazy, but we're doing it today after we record this, and I can't wait because we're rested. We know what to do. It's just about executing. And and your friend Duchess has done this raid before. He claims doing the final boss is not that bad. We'll see. And if we're yes, and if we're missing one, you will be jumping.
Because I can put some stuff aside and make sure that I can help out if somebody needs to leave or doesn't show up.
So, Paul, you had an interesting experience going back to Horizon Forbidden West this week.
Yes, which leads from that into my third thing, first listed, but anyway. Yeah, so I tried to play a little of Horizon Forbidden West, and I happened to pick, I guess, the wrong AI to go after. Basically meaning for anybody that has not played Horizon or Horizon Forbidden West, your idea is you need to sort of revitalize these AIs that are in charge of terraforming the planet after this apocalypse before the game started. You can choose which of these 3 to go after first, and what I thought was the lowest suggested level was the one you're supposed to go to, because that's usually the way it is. I ended up picking the one that's the midway like exposition dump. So I run through, I started up, and I'm like, all right, this is, let's just kind of get into the flow of everything, running around, seeing a couple of cutscenes, and I get to this base, which is like a museum for like an old, like California flying fighter jet squad or something, which is funny, because like I remember in the first game, there was like a real life place for, because it's in Utah, which there's a flight school that's there that literally exists, and you can see the architecture. It's really so
cool. It's super cool. That's like the coolest things about Horizon, getting to identify some real world stuff and how it would look like 2,000 years later after.
So I don't know Nevada or California nearly as well, so I'm not sure if this is like a real existing place or not. But anyway, that kind of is the idea, and you're going through, but you have to like hit these audio logs of sorts for the exhibits, and each time you hear it, it's like garbled. You have no idea what it's saying anyway, and the lady kind of says a couple things, you say a couple things, you have to walk to the next one, hit the button, listen to it. So I did that for like 15 minutes, it felt, just having to listen to all of it, and it's required, and the last couple were optional or whatever. And I had to go talk to like the chief, and that was like a 30-minute plus thing, because I sat there and I was just
hearing
on my
about
phone,
about the existence of this clan, and Hatara, the guy that lost his arm in the standoff that happened earlier in the game.
So I had to talk to him, which I didn't even remember him from earlier, so I'm glad they said that he was there, because I was like, gosh, was he there?
I didn't use it also, but also because I was OCD in the game doing so much that was non-story stuff, that then when I go back, I was like, oh right, he was there, right?
Yeah. And I was just like, I don't remember him getting his arm ripped off. What? Anyway, so go through all that. I have to talk to him separately, the chief separately, and by the end, I was very much sharing Aloy's frustration, because she's like, I do not care.
Right.
Let me pass. Please. And he's like, but we must talk about the backstory of our clan. And she's like, good Lord, what if I do what you want, will you let me in?
Yeah.
And I was
it's so funny. Then in a way they nailed it.
They kind of did, and she's just like so done with all these people talking about their grand mythology that they created from the AI, especially now that she knows like all the true backstory of it, where she's like, yes, the AIs of the gods, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's move it on, buddy. And I was sharing that, obviously. But then once that is done, you have to go to the next area, which in the process, I got my mount killed somehow, because it was like, oh, it's down. Okay, let me pick it up in a second. And then I kind of lost track in the middle of the fight. And by the end of it, I was like, oh, crap, it probably died by now. But you can't like call it again. I think you have to like recapture another.
Yeah, you have to recapture a new one.
So there was none nearby. Instead of like fast traveling away to another place and then coming back, I was like, I'll just run the rest of the way.
Yeah, why didn't you do that? Because you probably have already run through so many fireplaces for you to like fast travel to another place where you can go get a robot.
See, I wasn't 100% sure because I could not remember if that was what it was or if it was like a cooldown. I do not remember. So
there's no cooldown for fast travel. You only have to have...
No, not fast travel, the mount. So it's like, oh, it died. Like maybe it'll come back after a little time.
If it's red, it died. If it's red, then it completely died.
So that's what, like, I was trying to figure that out in my head as I kept running to the next place.
Yeah, you haven't played this game in forever, so it makes sense where...
So I just didn't remember how the rules of the game really were, because I was like, it could be a cooldown, but it could make me go back, because like by the time I could have sworn in the first game I've had him die and then like another one will show up.
They changed that from the first game, because your first one, like, he could die, but then you can just whistle and then you get another one. They changed that for this one.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not 100% crazy then. That's good. So I had to run through all of that, did a lot of crazy platforming over a mountaintop, and it felt like there's a moment from Death Stranding where I'm like walking across the mountains, or like the Fellowship of the Ring, and that was...
It nails it, right? Yeah, it just nails it.
Oh boy, I'm really high up now. And then I finally get to the place that I need to go, and I didn't even tell you the exploit / glitch that ruined me at first. Well, I told you, but not the audience. I was unable to continue the storyline because after all of that exhibit talking and the chieftain talking, the next lady I was supposed to speak to just walks into the background of the scene and is kind of pacing. Yeah. And just kind of looking off into the distance. Yeah. And I'm like, what is going on right now? And sure enough, it finishes and she'll just start following me around and there's no way to talk to her. So I'm just like, all right, I'm going to run over here. And she runs after me and she stands there. And I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, it's like a moment from Skyrim. Yeah. And I just couldn't do it. So I had to restart and I just skipped through all the stuff. And then I had to talk to her again. So it's just all of that lining up caused me to just give up and go play Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga. So we can talk about that later, but I know you have some more things to talk about Horizon first.
I beat it.
Yes, you did.
And not only did I beat it, I platinumed it. Like I said I would.
Now, how was that?
It was...
I know you said by the end, it's front runner, isn't it?
Yeah, so right now it's like, as of this moment, having beat Horizon, this is my front runner for Game of the Year. The story of that game really, really clicked with me. And some of the final moments of that game is the closest I've gotten to a game giving me the suicide mission from Mass Effect 2. Ooh. Yeah, as close, because it does the great thing that it actually builds up the characters if you spend the time to build up your team. Like with Aaron, Barl, and all the other characters that you're going to meet. Like the missing arm dude, he's going to join you. Just spoilers, obviously.
I figured.
So yeah, it's like if you spend the time, like, because... The thing that I told you about this is that remember, this is not just an action game. This is a role-playing game where conversation is vital part of the experience. So keep that in mind when you play it, because obviously you've been playing a lot of games that are very gameplay focused and you just kind of jump in. Horizon is both a gameplay focused experience and a very narrative experience where it's very important for you to like engage in those conversations because it just builds the world, it builds the story. So, but it requires a certain mind to be like, okay, I'm here to sometimes listen to the story, because I just kind of want to play, but then I did the story and then it was that big tangent when you find Gaia and she explains you everything, and it was like 1 a.m. and I was like, god damn it, there's a lot about it I want to read. And I had this thing where this happens in Mass Effect. I go through all the dialogue. I don't skip. I listen to all of it. So
I used to be really good about that, and then some like adult switch flipped in me, and then I was like, I don't have the patience for this. However, if it's well written and well performed, I'm fine. But
and I feel this
feels like stilted dialogue, and then I'm like, oh,
and I'll say this: when I try to replay Zero Dawn, that game was inconsistent with the character animations. That the character animations in the main story worked, but when you were just talking with other people, it was very stilted. That it didn't want me to really engage with the dialogue like I do here. This game, almost overall, it's all well performed. From voice acting to like to animation, it really sucks you in.
I agree. I think I remember saying that back when I was still really obsessed with Horizon, like those 7 days before Elden Ring came out. Because I remember saying that I couldn't tell the difference between an actual cutscene and like just dialogue. Because sometimes I would hit the button just out of curiosity because it's like, all right, I read this one, let me skip it. And I was like, oh, this is a cutscene. Wait a minute. And I wouldn't know because like the animations, it felt like a fully fleshed out and written cutscene. And it's still really surprising to me. So I just need to pick the right spot, I think, and then play more of the game, and then I can get back into the story.
And like I mentioned to you, it's like that Aether AI section is like the most talky part of the game because you have to go to 2 different tribes and then go back, like participate in a big event that they do. So it's like the most overlong section of the 3 AIs. The other 2 are much quicker. The final one is like in the middle between like how talky it is, but it also goes pretty quick. And those other 2 gives you the upgrades to more explore the world if you please. Like the Poseidon one, that's how you get the infinite swimming.
Yeah.
And that was a godsend for me because I had a couple upgrades that required me to go find some stuff from underwater, but I couldn't because I have this way where I love maxing out all side content before I go into main stuff. And this game sometimes and this game sometimes stonewalls you and it'll be like, no, just keep going the story. It's like, okay, I'll keep doing it. But even then, like this game still indulged me in that I still did all enough side stuff so by the time I roll credits, that's when I popped my platinum. And I posted some pictures in my Twitter about like some of the final sections, the aesthetic, like how would this, because this is what I always say that I love about Horizon, that mix of a post-apocalypse that restarted the world, but with hints of the futuristic like society that existed there before all went to hell. And now seeing that mix, like seeing your characters that are more in what you would consider more primitive armament in that high-tech, super wide blue, like super clean aesthetic in that final section. Perfect. Like it was like
I appreciate that because one of my criticisms for Zero Dawn was that it didn't feel like it was a post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It was just, there were some cars here and there and some old buildings, but it was mostly very primitive style, which granted, you were right, where once you got past Meridian, things kind of felt more medieval, but like with a fantasy twist. Now, especially where Aloy herself is more decked out in some of that sci-fi garb, and she's more willing to like hand that off to other people so that more of them are starting to get that sci-fi feel. They're getting more understanding of the world before them, is like a lot more,
it's more engrossing.
Yes, and I'm more forgiving of those primitive moments because now it's like you're fully from the perspective of the person who understands all of that, and all of her close friends also understand it. So it's just the outsiders that are like still talking primitively, and she's like, get your act together, guys. We are better than this.
Yeah, it's like this is an Aloy that now knows better. She has earned the knowledge that this wasn't how the world always was.
And I'm glad that she's using her knowledge very regularly, where she's not just like an idiot character like we have very often sometimes.
Yeah, she's not that naive character that's like, she now acts like someone that knows about the world thanks to her focus.
Yeah.
So that's what helps a lot, like makes, because I always say that like this, Zero Dawn was a story about Aloy. The story about her figuring her place in this world, figuring out that she may be like that savior character that she just completely rejects because it doesn't jive with how she's been treated the whole time, while also being a story about how did this world become this primitive place while still having futuristic robots. And the answer to Zero Dawn that happens later in that game kind of brings that all together. However, Forbidden West is not as personal a story, but it helps build the world more.
Maybe that's why I like it so much more, because we've kind of answered a lot of those questions of how it happened and who is Aloy. Now it's, we know Aloy, we know her little cast, now let's fix the world. And it's like, let's just go, like full adventure now. And I think I really jive with that a lot more.
Yeah, and I feel this story is gonna like stick up with me more because I engage in so much of the world building that I don't like, because and obviously you have a bunch of games we had to play also. I said I was committing to getting this platinum because I got the platinum for Zero Dawn, so that helped me engage with this game in a way that I don't know if it's gonna be the way you engage, because I didn't just play for platinum. I also stayed until I upgraded all my armor. That's not even a trophy like I was able to engage in this game's systems without just being like, I just want this for a trophy. No, I want this to see how strong this bow can get, how resistant this armor that looks like the Thunderjaw. I ripped it and I covered myself in Thunderjaw armor. It's super cool sometimes, some of the things you can find from this game. And reading that, I also missed out on a few bows because of some decisions I made. So I was like, I hope they do what they did with Zero Dawn, that they do New Game Plus. Most Sony games have done this, that they wait a few months and then they patch in New Game Plus. Yeah. I'm gonna wait because I would like to see some other stuff from some decisions I didn't make, just on my own accord. But excellent game. Like, I hope that once you get out of this humpy area, that section of the game ends strong. So keep going, but then go to Poseidon. You need to see some visual. This game is a visual feast. I can't imagine another game, like, from a technical level, delivering kind of like the visual. Like, it looks like an expensive game. Obviously, Elden Ring has a beauty to it that's more like artistic. This is more like in the technical, like the game that can make your 4K TV sing, and some of those areas really, really sing. So,
which reminds me, I cleaned up some of my color grading for my TV. There isn't like a specific HDR, but I had to go through a lot of really obscure ways to get to what I needed to. Yeah. And it is very, even like after I kind of understand this TV now, it is so terribly done.
Yeah. So let me add to that. So my TV has this thing where obviously if you don't play in game mode, you feel latency.
Right.
The thing is that the colors in game mode were not even close to what it's in Vivid. Yeah. And a recent patch that the PS5 did apparently triggered the PS5 to enable something in my TV called instant game mode, that I can now go to Vivid and have like more like quicker latency than before, but it's still game mode. It's still the perfect latency you need. But I was like, I don't understand. I'm like boosting all the color in game mode. It doesn't even look as vibrant as it looks in Vivid. But I want to keep playing in Vivid because even though it's responsive, I can still feel it's not. I still feel there's a slight delay that for other people that don't know, it'll be fine. But then there's a color management in my TV that I went granularly. It's like, do you want to edit the red, the green, the blue, the cyan, the magenta, the yellow? And I was like, going back and forth, be like, okay, I'm gonna edit this to make it look as close as possible for it to be vivid without me losing my responsiveness. I finally did. I spent way too much time doing that. HDR, it's a mess.
I was on Destiny, and I was specifically like in the world, and my the void was looking like a royal blue, and I was like, this is just not right. And it's like all washed out, but somehow also oversaturated in places, and I was like, what's going on? So I tilted it all.
Yeah, the throne world is a great place for you to like tilt all the colors to the right, like getting a green to look green.
It's got your reds, it's got your greens, and then whatever your character has on it as well. So I feel a lot more confident with all of that on game mode now, thank God. But
yeah, so real quick, Paul, how much more do you play with Lego Star Wars?
I got through the entirety of Force Awakens and all of the prequels done. So I worked through, you were absolutely right about Phantom Menace, like really struggling in that department. But once it kind of kicked off through Attack of the Clones, which made me realize that I still really enjoy Attack of the Clones in the end.
Like as a movie?
I want to say yeah. Because if we were to redo Attack of the Clones, just humor me for a second, and like took away some of like the specific dialogue choices and kind of reshifted the priorities of the CG, each of the individual moments are really powerful.
Yeah.
You've got the moment of Anakin seeing his mother die in his arms. It is still powerful. You have that moment of him on the sand bike flying out in Tatooine. You're like, I feel what I'm seeing, which is not often in Star Wars media sometimes. I still love Obi-Wan's investigation of Jango Fett.
That's excellent. Detective Obi-Wan is excellent. It is the reason why so many people have been wanting an Obi-Wan centric stuff, because episode 2 is the most it's given us like a central Obi-Wan story. So.
And it always makes me think about the stuff that Jedi Masters have to do of like these investigations and these figuring it out by also being a diplomat, but you have like an infinite trump card in your force and your lightsaber. But what happens when you hit somebody that's just as good as you without the force? And I was like really feeling that. And I also love how Obi-Wan always talks about how much he hates flying, but he's really good at it.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that, and then even like the Battle of Geonosis once the clones show up is just
it's excellent. It's like probably the best single battle in the prequels because there's so many cool ones in Revenge of the Sith, but because there's so many, you don't have one that's like a big moment. And then the Phantom Menace is like divided into 4 different planes of action,
and that's
which, by the way, it's like it makes me realize why this episode going through episode 1 in Lego Star Wars is weird, because that movie's weird. It's like that. It's like you think about those big moments, but you don't think about when they happen. And a lot of it is, and it's funny. It's like these games, from what I kept playing a little bit, it's making sure that you hit all the big moments from the movies. Yeah. Like they spare no spare to be like, if you remember something that's big in a movie, you're gonna play that. But then that's when you realize it makes you think of Phantom Menace. Like, yeah, that movie is very backloaded for like the thing that people love about it.
And like certain parts of it, like most of Tatooine, most of the Gungan stuff, I was like, none of this needed to be here. And like if they just kind of stretched out and paced better the last quarter of the movie, which is what it felt like George Lucas wanted to focus on, I was like, just put that in throughout the movie rather than put that at the end all at once. But anyway, so yeah, I just got to do all of that, Revenge of the Sith, all that stuff. So pulling away from the Star Wars as like a media piece and more as the game itself, I could see how there's like just that charm. I could see how there's those moments of frustration, some like sketchy things that they decided to do of like merging different scenes or deciding to like, all right, we're just going to give you this random character as a secondary character. The infamous problem of, hey, we're going to give one of you, if you're playing in co-op, a really great climactic fight, and the other of you is going to walk around like C-3PO with nothing to do for 10 minutes.
With the Revenge of the Sith battle.
That's probably like the biggest offender of co-op and making something for co-op,
especially with what Zach told me, that in one of the later other episodes you actually can battle against your co-op partner. So it's like, why didn't you do it for the entire game then?
Which doesn't even make sense after a while, but like, yeah, that's a whole thing in itself.
But as a single player package, like ignoring that whole idea for co-op, it's like, it's very enjoyable.
It is very enjoyable, and I could see if I was even just like a little bit less of like the adult with responsibilities category of my life that I'm at, I could see myself spending so many hours just running through, collecting the studs and messing with all of that stuff, flying to the different planets, getting all the ships, all the characters. Because like even as a kid, that was what I used to love so much, of just like, who is this character, this weird obscure person? I don't know, I want to get him. And then I would just spend hours like collecting stuff and finding little secrets.
Is there something that has made me appreciate more the more I played of and seen my brother play of Lego Star Wars, since I was focusing on finishing Horizon, is it has enough of what makes Star Wars cool without feeling like this is the only Star Wars you need. I am so happy for this game to trigger something in kids to go watch those movies, even the movies I don't like in the sequel trilogy.
And I mean, I haven't even gotten to Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi yet, but like playing through The Force Awakens made me realize that I do enjoy that movie, even outside of like, yes, technically it's because they're like setting up things that you might want in the future that didn't pay off, but like even so, in that moment,
it's a fun movie. It's a well-acted, well-made movie that shows you
they have great chemistry together. It's great. It's enjoyable. It's Star Wars the way it's meant to be, with like that blend of CG and like true stuff. And if you just turn your brain off, oh man, it's so good.
It's made me want to go back and see the movies in Disney Plus. So, and that's the greatest compliment I can give it, especially since we have Obi-Wan coming out later. So
I'm actually going through, like I told you, I watched Phantom Menace right before I played the game, and then I was in the middle of playing like the opening parts of Attack of the Clones.
When you're with Padme?
Yeah, I was still on actually the part of the speeder chase in Coruscant. I haven't even gotten to all of that yet, but I am fully prepared to start skipping as I get bored. But just the moments individually that I really want to see were just, they are still really good to this day. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say about all of that. And I know we talked for a minute on all of those things, but
but it's like we love what we've been playing. So Paul, we got a baby, but I think we can get through this relatively. But man, I can't wait to talk about some of these. So Paul, press X.
Oh, I think I just lost you. Oh, there we are. Press X to play.
For some news. All right, Paul. Early Sunday morning, we got a little tease of something that I wasn't expecting because I have forgotten that they were celebrating the 20th birthday of this series. So, number one, if you thought you'd seen the last of Tetsuya Nomura for a little bit after his touch was all over Stranger of Paradise, by the way, we should call that touch the Nomura stink. Thank you, Dustin Furman from Sacred Symbols. Nomura stink. Buckle up. During a 20th anniversary celebration of the series, Square Enix made a couple Kingdom Hearts announcements. Here they are. The first one is Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, a new mobile iOS entry focused on adventures inside the realm of Scala ad Caelum, the very abstract biome from the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. This offshoot, which in Kingdom Hearts tradition will be important to the overall plot of the series, is releasing a closed beta sometime in 2022. Keeping in the mobile front, Square Enix also announced the final chapter for their other Kingdom Hearts mobile offshoot, Kingdom Hearts Key Dark Road, is coming as a free update in August 2022. Do you ever play any of these mobile stuff, Paul?
I actually played a little bit of it back in the day. It's surprisingly fun.
Yeah, I've heard.
If
especially
it was
this
like
Kingdom Hearts Key one, that's like the circle, or something like that.
They like rebuilt it similarly to how they did like Final Fantasy 14, where they kind of like just redid it all again. They started it off, and the mobile stuff was really rudimentary, kind of frustrating. And then later on, they kind of like redid everything from that point, and then they added like a lot of stuff that was like actually talking about the Keyblade War and people that like died in the process of it. I was like, oh shoot, this is getting real. Not to mention putting very important Kingdom Hearts lore things in, which like I just had to drop off at a certain point because it becomes a job, because you have like a certain amount of energy, and it's very like mobile game, play this amount each day. And I was like, I can't just keep putting this money.
Their obsession at making everything Kingdom Hearts related like important, it's hilarious.
It's tiring, that's for sure, but I mean at the same time, it's like, once again, if you turn your brain off, it's really enjoyable in the right ways, and it hits that perfect blend of like kid-like optimism with like teenager edginess that really hits the right spots in me, even to this day, and just the aesthetic is wonderful. So like, yeah.
Have you ever tried explaining Kingdom Hearts to Elizabeth, or she doesn't even know?
I think she knows like a very, very basic idea of it, and I think all I said was, you are a anime boy with a key for a sword, and you work with Donald and Goofy to go to Disney World, and you save the world. And she was like, awesome.
If only it was that simple to explain. Like, if
when
the stories were actually
it down, that's
the first game.
The idea
the first game is literally that. So it's just after that it
gets a little weird. You can also add the "and then shenanigans ensue" right at the end of that statement.
Find the 30-minute like explanation of all the games to play like Kingdom Hearts 3. I watched that thing, and I felt like that meme of the skeleton in the chair after receiving something like a massive shock, because that's how I felt, like absorbing all of that back in 2018 when I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna play these. It's too much. But it's like that was just the mobile stuff. The important one, number 2, Square Enix also officially announced the existence of Kingdom Hearts 4, by the way, whose existence was hinted at in the massive Nvidia leak from last year.
I've been hearing about this and how
we
all
talked
of
about
the
it.
ones
We
in
talked
it,
about it in the show. We read the games.
yeah.
So
I'm kind of shocked that all of them have been true as well, because a lot of people are very excited because one of the other things mentioned in the Nvidia leak was Final Fantasy IX remake.
yeah. Oh, and many other things. Street Fighter 6 was also there.
I know, it's nuts. So I didn't want to like go too much into that, but I thought it was interesting that I was like, oh shoot, this has all been real.
Yeah.
Wow.
So continuing with that, the new game was announced with in-game footage showing the new look for protagonist Sora, as well as the new art direction they're aiming for the new game. The trailer showcased Sora battling a giant Heartless, you, in a new city called the Quadratum. Or Quadratum, I don't know, with other glimpses including the return of Donald and Goofy as Sora's companions, as well as tiny hints at potential places the game will take place, including the Underworld and potentially a Star Wars world. Other details include this game being the start of the Lost Master Arc saga, which was a side plot hinted in the movie included in the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 collection, which also ties to what Maleficent was pursuing in her open-ended thread from Kingdom Hearts 3.
Can you just like pause for a second and think about the bat crap insanity you just said for that last part of that sentence?
Yeah, that's Kingdom Hearts in a nutshell.
Goodness. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, the game is also being planned to be made in Unreal Engine 5, continuing Square Enix's continued use of Epic's technology after they used Unreal Engine 4 for Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake. No release window was announced, so expect the game to come out sometime this decade. I'm shocked we're getting Kingdom Hearts 4 this quick, because think about when we got Kingdom Hearts 2, then we had to go through Birth by Sleep, then Dream Drop Distance, and then all the collections, and then them adding extra stuff in the 1.5 and 2.5 collection, then them doing the 2.8 collection to add the extra epilogue for Birth by Sleep that then would connect to Kingdom Hearts 3, but then also giving you that movie that shows you about the Lost Masters, that then it's just barely hinted at, because you're seeing, okay, Maleficent is in this game, but what the hell is she doing? Is she also pursuing the thing that we're doing with Semnus and the other 13 things? I don't remember. Yeah, people, whenever you hear about Kingdom Hearts, this is how it feels like. You feel like you want to commit someone into an asylum when you hear explanation of Heartless, the Organization 13, the Scions, the Roxas, the Half Saurus, and it's all part of this.
Oh, it is a lot, that's for sure. But for anybody that didn't know, I guess I wanted to explain and sort of clarify, because some people have been criticizing both the art direction and some of the choices that they've made for this next game. Gosh, it feels so difficult to just wrap my head around all of this still, because I'm still reeling from all of that. Anyway, so
Paul,
Sora
before you continue, like, it's like Kingdom Hearts 2 is your favorite game, right?
It is one of, if not the best game for me to go back to this day.
So people think about his state of mind as he unwraps this. So continue.
Yeah, so gosh, people had these thoughts at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, because for anybody that doesn't know, spoilers for Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora finally finishes kind of all of the fighting during that time, and in the process kind of gives his soul up and disappears.
To save his love, Kairi.
Yeah, to save all of that in the my friends are my power and all that good stuff. And at the end of, I think the master mode, critical mode, whatever it's called, whenever you beat it, Sora wakes up and Riku wake up in Shibuya, Japan, like a real place in Japan. However, changing some of the addresses just slightly, which lines up with one of their other series called The World Ends With You.
Which is an afterlife sort of thing, right? That's
yes.
what that series is? Yeah.
I don't fully know too much about it. However, I know kind of that much, where it's like, all right, they're kind of in some sort of purgatory. Anime Lost.
The game is cheap right now, if you want to try it.
The first one or the new one?
The World Ends With You that they put out for PS4.
I think that's the second one then, because the
it's
original
a remake of the original one.
Oh, okay, okay. I got what you're saying then. Man, I might, but it's apparently a slog to get through because it's a lot of dialogue.
Hey,
so
remember, we have nothing to buy, so Just throwing it out there. So,
maybe so. We'll see if we cross that bridge. But however, I will say the aesthetic for that game is peak. And of course, also the World's Ends with You characters showed up in Dream Drop Distance because they were part of the whole Dream World situation that was going on. Anyway. So that's already been established. That's probably going to be a thing. There's been a lot of speculation throughout Kingdom Hearts 3 because a lot of very key characters who are from the Final Fantasy series were completely not in any game of this at all for Kingdom Hearts 3, and it focused exclusively on like Pixar and Disney movies,
which they rectified with the DLC.
That's true, but they only showed up for like 10 seconds, didn't they?
Yeah, but it was showing Sid, the guy from Final Fantasy VIII, and Aerith. So,
that's true. So they, oddly enough, all of them except for Leon are 7 technically, and then like the first game's characters were from 10, and then Anyway. So there's a lot of that going on. So the idea being that they've kind of saved a lot of those real world-ish worlds for this next game, which includes, as what a lot of people have been speculating based on screenshots from the trailer, might include Star Wars
and Endor.
And Endor specifically, because there's a forest, a very realistic looking forest, and in the very corner looked like a very distinct metal foot, which is part of the ATSTs.
Which is like, there's no other thing that looked like that, so it's clearly
they very
an ATST.
Specifically put that in there. So unless somebody knows something in the trailers that just mess with people, that was purposely put there. So yes. That has me very curious, because at first I was like, oh, there's no way they're going to get Star Wars, because those two teams are very different and it's very difficult to get that kind of crossover. Apparently that's
to
why.
Me, them, the way they did Pirates of the Caribbean on Kingdom Hearts 3, and based on what Unreal Engine can do as a technology and how they're evolving and moving into Kingdom Hearts and into this one.
Yeah.
Unreal Engine 5, I feel, is going to give them kind of like the art style and the power to try to recreate the more live action side of Disney. That is not just Disney. Star Wars, Marvel.
Possibly.
Yes.
And anything else that they've got under their category, which by this point, Disney owns just about everything. So,
yeah, they own your mom. They own your dad.
They own just about literally all those people that are Disney fans to this day. They basically own your parents, guys.
Yes. Here's what I also find funny, because I don't know if you noticed this, or how much you remember from the DLC, that if you complete all the super hard boss fights of that Kingdom Hearts 3 DLC, I mentioned this when we did that review of that thing way back before the pandemic, you fight Yosora at the end, and if you lose against Yosora, the end of that DLC is literally a recreation of the Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailer of the guy that looks like Noctis that's in the car.
Well, isn't that the one? Oh, I know what you're talking about.
The original Versus 13 of Noctis being in the car before he goes to like the stairs and fights everything. Yeah. He literally recreated
I love that trailer.
Yeah, it was excellent. The idea of what that game could have been had it not taken forever. And they recreated that same music from the car, by the way. I went back and looked. It was like, wow. It's like, it feels like Nomura, it's still salty that Final Fantasy Versus 13 has never got made. That he's making it a Kingdom Hearts 4. There is literally the kind of movement you see from Sora in this. It's very Versus 13, so he's like insistent that he's really gonna make that game.
And he's like, by God, I will create a Kingdom Hearts game that will make my fan fiction a reality. And you know what? I gotta like respect his persistence, because ever since that kind of started falling apart, he's been trying to put it into all of his other games just to like get that to happen.
Because just think about it. So it's like how disruptive Final Fantasy Versus 13 just was for literally everyone. That's a game that was announced in E3 2006 next to Final Fantasy 13. And that was obviously a problem of, funny enough, these games were PS3 games. We know about what happened with the PS3 and the luminous tech that they were using. That then that game almost even, it was said to have been canceled. That was said like in like July 2012 that Final Fantasy Versus 13 was not happening anymore. And then on E3 2013, that's when they were like, no, Final Fantasy 13 versus 13 is still happening. Is just now we're being more ambitious. Now this is just not an offshoot. This is a mainline entry. It's Final Fantasy 15. And if you see that original Final Fantasy 15 trailer from E3 2013,
I remember it so well.
You see a lot of that, like the way like the camera flows and how your character moves through the world, like that kind of dynamicism that is not in the games. You see some of that here.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that's when they announced Kingdom Hearts 3 also. Kingdom Hearts 3 was put on hold because of Nomura wanting to do Versus 13 and just for 5 years just effing around and not getting it done. And then having to give it to Hajime Tabata. And then
he having to go do Kingdom Hearts anyway.
No, and on top of that, he was going to do Kingdom Hearts 3, and then Square was like, you are the director of Final Fantasy 7 Remake too. So it's like, they just keep getting...
That was a whole thing. You could talk for hours about that whole process of like them forcing him to keep giving up his projects to do something else that they want done.
Because my favorite of that story is that apparently when the board of directors for Square, they do the presentations about their projects, they put that Tetsuya Nomura was the director of Final Fantasy VII Remake without telling him.
Oh, that's right, because he was like, wait a minute, they what?
They what? Yeah. So that's why then if they gave it to CyberConnect, the guys that did .hack, that those RPGs, but the game wasn't just coming together, so Square just yanked it. And because they were like, when Nomura was like, I'm working on Kingdom Hearts 3, I can't do 2 at the same time. So they're like, okay, you're going to oversee the project, CyberConnect's going to do it. But they're like, CyberConnect's not doing a great job. So in 2018, they yanked that project out from them. Yeah. And when Kingdom Hearts 3 was finally like done around 2018, it was in polishing phase. That's when Nomura was able to finally fully transition over to do Remake. They got that thing done in 2 years. And by that time, they already had moved to Unreal Engine 4. So think about that. That is like, they have this technology that they know how to work with. So maybe this new game's not going to take that long. I mean, and that's the thing, like, Nomura just came off of doing whatever he did in Stranger of Paradise. They said he just did the concept and the character design. That game has that stink of Nomura all over that game. The constant reuse of a very specific word. In Kingdom Hearts is darkness, and this one is chaos. Yeah. And that you can't tell me that it's not a Nomura joint at that point. So it's like, what else is he got working other than maybe Remake 2? Maybe Final Fantasy Remake 2 is what he's currently working on, because they said they started working immediately after Remake 1 was done because they wanted to complete that story quick. So 2025.
Do we know if it's just for the Final Fantasy Remake? Do you think that is... How many games do you think that's going to be, out of curiosity? You think it's just going to be 3, or...
Based on how they are talking about it, it feels like maybe it will cap at part 3, depending on how much they do in part 2. The problem was that, remember, Final Fantasy VII is such an expensive game. Midgar, which was a 35 hours thing in this one, is such a tiny part of what Final Fantasy VII actually becomes.
But granted, Midgar, I feel, was already underdeveloped in that original game. They just couldn't put that kind of effort into it. But it felt huge. And then I was like, after that, what is left in the game besides, like, because it was like a wasteland practically, and then like individual little places. So I was like, well, shoot, they're gonna have to really either build out this empty world or make everything that happens in that next chapter like way more condensed.
And the big question is, like, they set a standard. It was like they set a high standard with what they did with Midgar.
Very
how they made a full ass game out of a 5-hour section from the original game.
Yeah.
And with high quality and everything. Obviously, there was pop-in issues that were inherent of Unreal Engine. Remember when you were in the ceiling and then you saw some faraway things that had no textures load at all? And Cloud's door was literally without textures. That was fixed in the PS5 version, but it's like that game had some technical jank to it, despite its high production value. It really is. I really want to see if they're gonna commit at keeping that high standard throughout everything, because they made that decision. They were the ones that, we just don't want to do a visual remake. We're remaking this stuff, and obviously they
remade it. My gosh.
Yes, they took the name literally, like they took the remake name literally, to the point that now some fans are like nervous that they're gonna change stuff based on where that story actually went at the end.
the discussions that were caused out of that, like creating spoilers possibly for Final Fantasy VII Remake, but the possibility of an alternate timeline that they're creating out of the changes they're making to the original plot has, gosh, it had me in a vice grip for a little while of people making like questions and like video essays on what could happen now versus what did happen. And as somebody who never really finished the original, I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. Yes. I can only imagine somebody.
I'll say, like, think about it as like the monkey's paw scenario. It's like, obviously, if this has just been a remake, like as is, people already know about what happens. There's some people that like the sanctity of keeping a story as it was, just giving it that facelift for it to be experienced for new generations. Square Enix took the extra mile of being like, now we're George Lucasing this. We're retweaking because we want you to feel like you can still be surprised about what happens. So
I see that's where you get into such a questionable
it's category. Like a 50-50. That's why it's a monkey's paw.
I mean, if it's done right, but then also if you're just making changes for the sake of making changes, then you're going to make a lot of people really mad. So
throwing it out there, does the big death still happen?
That's what
everyone.
And if all I can think is based on your choices, it's going to change or it'll stay the same, because whatever they choose is going to make a very large statement on how they view the philosophy of that game. And the philosophy they created from the first remake of, can you really fight fate, or is it always going to get one over on you? And that's going to be the real question we're going to see. Anyway, we talked briefly about Final Fantasy instead of actually Kingdom Hearts.
So it's a Kingdom Hearts 4. We don't know much. That's the thing. There's not much we can say. It's just so funny that it seems like Nomura is going to give us his Final Fantasy Versus 13 to hell or high water, even if it's not called that.
Here's a good question. They said that it was in engine for that gameplay segment, but do you think that's actually gameplay, or do you think that's like cyberpunk style?
No, they did that for Kingdom Hearts 3. They literally recreated how they originally revealed that game. So
true. Okay, so you think it's more actual gameplay put in there?
I believe it.
Because, well, you think about it, because I immediately got flashbacks to when Final Fantasy 15 was made, and that had gameplay. And we didn't see any of that.
Because that game's tortured development.
So I guess maybe part of that was my trauma kind of coming at me, but then I was like, oh, is this actually real, or is this just like they're making like fake gameplay for us to get hyped? But it looked real enough that I was like, I could see this, especially now with like their Unreal Engine 5, that city being super realistic. It looked a little rough at times.
Because it was made on Unreal Engine 4. They revealed that because of what I was telling you, that some people were speccing what they're gonna move over when they have the full set that they have
nobody
now.
Had shadows. Sora had a very dopey face, very thick lips all of a sudden.
Unreal Engine 4 has this blurriness in resolution, and that you can see in most games that are on that tech, with the exception of games that had that tech that now run on PS5 and Xbox Series X that have more power to them. Even the Matrix demo has like incredible high level detail, but then also some low res stuff. So that's just probably inherent to this engine. But
I'm just very curious. I love the changes that they made. I realized that I said I was going to talk about the art direction change, and then we never did. So let me say that real quick, and we can move on. The reason I think, along with many others that are theorizing, that he looks like this is because he's specifically in this kind of world, and his appearance, there we go, is changing to match the realistic nature of it, but that is not the overall look of the entire game.
And you can infer that. Just look at the moment where they show you Donald and Goofy.
Exactly. That's what a lot of people are saying, where they look almost identical with maybe a little bit more washed outness than their little segment, as opposed to Sora looking completely different. And we're also thinking like maybe he's looking like this now, and the ending like cutscene that showed him and Riku in the new world.
And I mentioned that look what they did with the Pirates of the Caribbean world in 3. The art style changed.
A little bit, but he was mostly the same. It was just like they washed out the colors and they kind of changed a little bit of the details. But overall, it was still... I don't know. I still think it's kind of the same for that. But this is like a very different, like they're changing proportions.
The intent started there. Now we're seeing the realization of their intent of putting Sora in a live action thing.
I'm wondering if they just felt like they had to because the Pirates of the Caribbean world was like one of the most popular, and they were like, well, let's just put that back in there.
And if you remember in Kingdom Hearts 2, they switched the art style of those movies to try to fit into how it looks. So
I mean, they didn't really change too much for Sora.
No, but they changed the pirates world, not Sora. Like, for it to kind of work with that style.
I mean, they had to give them all like crossbows instead of guns and stuff. That was really funny. But oh my gosh, I almost call him Barbados. What is his name? The villain from Pirates of the Caribbean 1.
The Davy Jones or Barbosa.
Barbosa, good lord, I was trying to come up with every word for the B. Anyway, that fight was really great. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that they did, but all of this at the same time, there's like so much creativity coming out of that, and that's one of the many reasons why Kingdom Hearts 2 is just so good, because there's so much creativity thrown in there, except the Little Mermaid world. You heard it here first. The world sucks.
Especially in 2, it's just a mini game.
And it's the retelling of what happened already too. So it's like, what is the point, guys? Why did you do this to us?
But everyone hated the Little Mermaid world and won, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
water levels just suck. But yeah, Paul, will you replay Kingdom Hearts in the lead up to this one?
I don't think I'm gonna play all of it. At the most, I still kind of need to replay Birth by Sleep, because I never finished Aqua's storyline and I never even touched Ventus's. Because
then you haven't finished that game. You have to finish
basically 3. Yeah. I played through Terra's, which apparently was the hardest, and I had so much trouble at the end that I didn't want to keep playing the other characters. And it wasn't until the remake that I played like through half of Aqua's, and like I know what happens, but I was like, it's so much to play through to get to that I like didn't want to touch it. So anyway, I had to do all that stuff. If they had a playable version of 358 over 2 days, I'd play that, but they won't, because they're cowards.
Yep.
They won't put one of the best Kingdom Hearts games on there. You heard it here.
They did put the story.
Story's like the weakest part of it, honestly. It's really fun and it's grounded. It feels like Kingdom Hearts 1, but they just, gosh. Anyway, so yeah, all that, and then I mean, I'd play through Kingdom Hearts 3 again because it's been a minute, and I feel like I didn't give it like a solid.
Yeah, I only played it once.
Yeah, I played that, and then separately I played through Remind DLC whenever that happened, and it was like really disconnected, and I didn't like it. But now I'm like, if I play through it all again,
I will say it's still, that DLC is still not great. It's like it wasn't worth the. It's only worth it if they heavily discounted. But
gosh, they made us $40 out of that. I mean, I already own it, so whatever. But gosh,
I will always appreciate that they recreated the Metal Gear Solid 4 microwave scene with Mickey. So that's the one thing I would appreciate of what they had.
I just pictured Mickey Mouse like fighting Donald Duck on top of a Metal Gear. Oh, anyway, yeah. Yes. So that's
the Kingdom Hearts talk for today. Man, we can talk about Kingdom Hearts forever, because that series is like, it demands that kind of conversation. It also fills my heart and fills my soul, the people that disdain the series. So, and I was seeing a lot of that snark come back alive, and I was like, yes, feed me, because it's a series that I know the things that is like, it's ridiculous about it. I will always champion it for how overtly positive of a series it is, despite dealing with so many heavy themes of loss also. So but it's all cheery. But now we're going into not cheery but stuff. Good news still. Huh? Yes, not number 2. Have you been wanting a new Max Payne made for this current generation of consoles, Paul?
You know it.
You're in luck, sort of. Remedy Entertainment announced they're partnering once again with longtime partner Rockstar Games to do a ground-up remake of the original Max Payne and Max Payne 2: The Fall of Max Payne. However, Remedy intends on combining both games into a single new remake, using their proprietary Northlight engine, which powers recent games like Quantum Break and Control, and will be exclusive to the Xbox Series X and S, PS5, and PC, so it's a current-gen game. Rockstar will be financing the project, which Remedy says it's in line with what you can expect from a typical modern AAA production. So, if you remember how Control looked, it's legit. It's legit. How you're gonna
be a looker, yeah.
Yeah. So the announcement also emphasized the remake is in the concept development stage still, so don't expect to see anything of it anytime soon. This is the fifth, I repeat this, the fifth new project for Remedy in a string of announced projects, which include Control 2, a 4-player co-op Control spin-off, Alan Wake 2, and a free-to-play co-op game named Vanguard funded by Tencent. And let's not forget they just did the campaign for Crossfire X, which was a trash fire.
You had me until like the last couple sentences, and then I realized, oh no.
Yeah. So I'll say this, like, I don't 100% blame them for the Crossfire X fiasco, because it was like something that was literally thrown at them. I was like, please do something for this because we want to grab this. In the Xbox side, they just wanted to grab something that was big in like in the Koreas, because Crossfire X is like a very popular shooter worldwide that I didn't know about.
Yeah.
It's garbage, by the way. Garbage. But people love it. And they made a campaign. They made a 1 hour and 30-minute campaign for that.
Oh my gosh.
And that was free on Game Pass eventually, because it didn't launch immediately on Game Pass because of a bug. But it was just $10, just to give you an idea of how little they thought. They got the bag and run. I like Control a lot. Quantum Break, I like until the end. The end sucks. Alan Wake is cool. I have never finished it though. So
it's on sale.
I have
remake
it. I have it. I bought the remake. I bought the remake, even though that had the backward compatible.
I knew you did, but I was like, should I? And then I was like, I don't know.
It's good. That's it. I like Alan Wake. I just never. Now that I'm kind of like in this in between, and this is the perfect time because we don't have many games coming out right now to chip away at that backlog. So, and I just devour an open world game. I try to go back to Elden Ring and be like, yeah, I'm just chipping away at this, but I'm not gonna commit yet. I still need to build that motivation. That could be a good one for me to go back to. But yeah, it's like they have all these games announced, but I fear of Remedy becoming Platinum. At a certain point, they were starting doing so many games. The Korra game, the Transformers game, Nier Automata. They were doing Scalebound. They eventually they made their way to Babylon's Fall, and we know how that turned out. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, and we were getting a string of this is good. Oh shoot, this is bad. Oh, this is good again. Holy crap, this is garbage. Oh my god, this got canceled. Can they do all these projects? Are they big enough? Is Remedy? It's on Finland, I think. Yeah, it's an European studio. And just think about it. The first Alan Wake took them 7 years to make. 7 years. And because they started working on that after they finished work on Max Payne 2. And after Alan Wake 2, they took a break. They did the American Nightmare DLC that took them 2 years. And then they started working on Quantum Break that took them 4 years. Then Control, from Quantum Break to Control, took them 3. Control was very well received. Quantum Break, not so much. And I really like Control. Especially now that you can play it on a machine that can run it. It's even better.
Yeah.
So, and I still enjoy it even at 10 frames a second on PS4 back in 2019 when we played it. Ashtray Maze is
famously, like, my opinion of Control just, like, slowly pitched itself off of a cliff after a while. And I hate that was the case, because it was kind of the same problem that I had with Horizon Zero Dawn, where it was like a game that I know is good. Why do I not like it? And it just, that happened for the whole time throughout Control, where there's parts of it that I really loved and parts of it that I was like, why is this a thing? And then there were problems that for whatever reason seemed to tick like a specific box that just really would upset me, like the map, for instance, which I realize is now a very important thing.
Yeah, the controls map sucks, and you need to have good directional, like a sense of direction while you're in the game to understand that map. You have, in many times, have made it clear you have horrible sense of direction when it comes to games. So that game was not like the way they made moving through that world it was not for you. So obviously you had more of a trouble than I did.
So all that is to say that I respect everything with Control, and I respect a lot of their efforts into this. I want to say that I want to be a little more optimistic and say that they're pacing themselves based on the importance of the project. So like you can look at this list of saying, all right, Max Payne 2 remakes. You've got,
but altogether they're one. Remember, they're
right. That's what I'm saying. Like that's one.
Mm-hmm.
Control 2, that's probably high on their priority list. 4-player co-op Control spin-off, that sounds really low.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Wake 2, probably getting back up to that point, and a free-to-play co-op game named Vanguard, funded by Tencent, sounds so low, and just quality. So it's like, I can see them doing the continued process of this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, but also like, hey, we're kind of forced to do some of these, and we really want to do some of these others. So I can totally see them putting a large amount of effort into those other projects that they actually prioritize.
Yeah, especially the Tencent one, I can see it being, especially with based on how they treated the campaign that they just gave to Crossfire, just as the thing that here it is, they paid for it.
Yeah.
Because like that's what people don't realize about the free-to-play co-op style games, is that they can be low. As long as it's not a live service, you can kind of do it quick and just put it there and have it.
Yeah. So that's what I kind of think is going to be the case for that. But Remedy is like, Max Payne is their source, and I feel like there's still a lot of love from the developers, which are largely, if I'm not mistaken, still the same people that worked on it.
Yeah, Sam Lake.
And created it. So they clearly have the passion.
The thing about it is this way. Sam Lake, who's the writer for many of literally all the games that Remedy has made.
Yeah.
He put his face in Max Payne.
Yeah, he's
he is the face of Max
Payne in the originals. So. Which is so funny to think, because it's like cel-shaded pictures that people took of him, and they just kind of like put a filter and somebody kind of painted over it to make it into like that comic style. And it's so funny because I was like, why does he look so different?
Back then they were known as the kings of, these guys know gunplay, and not only do they know gunplay, they perfected bullet time, the thing that was only popular in Matrix, and they made it a thing in video games. So when it comes to like shooting, they've always been really good at that. Even like most of their games are basically third-person shooters. Quantum Break was like the loosest their shooting has felt, but because it was them also dealing with powers that then eventually they mastered with Control. And Control, above all else, is a really fun shooter. I feel it has really great mechanics. So
I agree, and I mean, look at it with Alan Wake, with Max Payne, with Quantum Break, with Control. They're all that same feel and just getting tighter and tighter with it. And Max Payne famously doing so well that literally the entirety of GTA 5 is still based on the movement set from Max Payne 3.
I will, just to give just a counteract, Remedy didn't work on Max Payne 3.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah.
But still.
Their basis, like some of the idea
what
of how
they built was so good that Max Payne 3 could use it, which was then used for GTA 5.
Yeah, they took the Max Payne mechanics, they morphed it, they took them and put it in the Rockstar Rage engine.
Yeah.
And then they moved that into GTA 5.
Yeah. But it's still so funny looking at the comparisons between the two of those. Max Payne 3's multiplayer and then GTA 5 is like
literally
one-to-one exact animations. But like still, so the fact that was still able to be done, or like if you play a scene from Max Payne 3 in a gunfight and then you play Max Payne 1 and 2, it feels very similar, if not the same, with like a few added bells and whistles.
By the way, I'll just have to add, Max Payne 3 very underrated. I really like that.
I would say so too, yeah.
And it's on Xbox. It's one of the last Xbox backwards compatibility games that they added, which I was so happy for, because I had the digital version of that game back in 2013. So I was like, yes, when they did that 20th anniversary stream, and they were like, Max Payne 3 is like, yes, it's the last Rockstar game I was missing to have them all here finally. playable modernly.
So. I just wish it was easier to skip the cutscenes for that because they're very long-winded.
Yes, but you can skip them. It's just that the game
sometimes.
is so bad. The way that games flow is like so tight into you going from gameplay to cutscene. It's very jarring for you to skip. So
that is true. I'll give it that. But it's so long that you're going to be sitting there for like a solid 10 plus 15 plus minutes sometimes, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, fine, I can skip it, and then he's like in the air at a completely different place, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, we had to go to a completely different location for this fight. Man, but gosh, the moment to moment is so fun that I just want to see that again, and they just could not, nobody could recreate that as much as they tried in that PS3 and 360 era, during and after. But I'm happy for it, and I'm cautiously optimistic. And like you said, there's some concerns about all the stuff that they're working on. But like we said, this is a concept. They just signed the letters. Ink hasn't dried yet, so let's just give it 5 to 10 years, and eventually.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious. Like from the other projects, which ones are gonna come out first, so we can get an idea of which ones we're getting first. I would think they would want to prioritize the things that are from their own, but they also got Rockstar money. So what if Rockstar Games so much money be like, no, you're doing this now? Because remember, Take-Two, we're releasing.
That's where things get really messy though, because when they have to put aside things they really want to do the Rockstar stuff, that's when you get some frustrated people, some ruffled feathers, and then they start cutting corners and doing things that don't work out for Rockstar.
Let's just say that right now Rockstar is coming on the heels of the trilogy remasters, so it's not like
gotta do something good.
Yes. And the thing that these are going to be ground out remakes is like, and now I know what they mean. We're like, oh yeah, because this is, remember, Rockstar is from Take-Two. Take-Two is like, we're releasing all this many games until like this certain amount of years. So I wonder if they gave them such a big bag of money to be like, please prioritize this. You know this game. You know Max Payne. You always wanted to go back to Max Payne, right? And they're like, yeah, sure. We'll do it with our tech. So we'll see. Hopefully we'll play by 2027. Number 3, Paul. It's a new Ghost Recon in development.
Oh boy.
According to Kotaku's Ethan Gack, it would appear a new Ghost Recon game codenamed Over, which was also part of the NVIDIA leak from last year that keeps on giving, has been in development for over a year and has been planned to be released sometime in fiscal year 2023. This game is a separate project from Ghost Recon Frontline, the massively derided battle royale announced at the series' 20th anniversary last year that's said to be undergoing a massive reset following both the negative pushback of its announcement and a very negative feedback from an internal playtest. The existence of this new Ghost Recon game makes sense in lieu of the recent cease in development for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The much maligned entry in the series has been limping over the last 3 years, slowly recovering from a calamitous launch before it became the victim of Ubisoft's ill-conceived NFT initiative. Something that is still being said is creating massive internal strife at the developer. No other details are known about this project. Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Paul, it's still to me like one of the worst games ever released. It's climbed its way slowly into trying to be what it should have been from what Wildlands was. It was basically they've reverted so many of the things they added to Breakpoint that made it worse to try and make it closer to Wildlands. That game never escaped its stink, despite Ubisoft continuously trying to update it. And it almost seems like the NFT thing that happened to that game late last year is what pretty much killed that game, because I remember hearing that some developers were following. It's like, we spent almost a year and a half repairing this game's reputation only for Ubisoft to put the stupid NFTs in this game. So
the fact that they didn't learn their lesson, they still want to put NFTs in their other games, is showing exactly what they decided to learn from that lesson. Ghost Recon has changed as a title so much in the collective conscious, and it makes me really sad because Ghost Recon used to be like the one you took seriously.
And Rainbow Six, both of them.
And Rainbow Six, shoot. All of that was so good, with like Rainbow Six being a very like focus on the shooter, and Ghost Recon was like very squad combat.
Yeah, so basically they were both two flavors of squad-based shooters. Ghost Recon was the open-ended world, like it was always the squad-based shooter that you had to like do your squad tactics in more open environments. Rainbow Six was close quarters. That's how they differentiated both of them. So I miss that kind of more tactical style shooter. I'm like, the last Ghost Recon I liked was Future Soldier in 2012. Wildlands I never really clicked with, even though it has some good stuff when you play co-op with it, but it's like...
Well, yeah, like Wildlands had those moments, especially like in the reveal trailer and the stuff that is more curated like that. Was more of the good content, and it was the in-between that it was like, all right, you've kind of done this very climactic mission, now go out and do that again. But at the same time, it's like, unless you put the effort into really making those missions good, you can kind of either cheese it, you can just do a very simple process recycled over and over again, which just gets tiring. And man, Breakpoint, my goodness, a game that is just, they've heavily focused on things like John Bernthal in it, only to kill him off in like the first few hours.
Making it a looter shooter.
Gosh, I can't believe they still did that.
The year the Division 2 came out, so they're like, let's put another Tom Clancy game as a looter shooter. Oh, let's put drone enemies with health. Completely going against what Ghost Recon was about.
There are raids in Breakpoint, which is just shocking, honestly. There's raid gear you can get for beating them. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
that was the nadir point of Ubisoft trying to homogenize everything. That then, when that game completely got demolished critically and commercially, they were like, we're delaying everything. And then in between the delays, that's when they fired the guy that homogenized everything. So, and
they're still not learning their lesson.
Exactly.
But anyway, I do want to say a few positive things about Breakpoint, though, because in the feel of the game, it's still, the shooting is really fun. The satisfying feeling of getting a headshot in that game, the feedback even before the PS5 haptic feedback, that kind of thud was just so good. Anyway, the squad combat, finally adding AI squad mates in, being able to play with your friends still. The additions, like more weapons, more free stuff that they added, the missions that unfortunately were paid expansions, but the almost said Silent Hill, the Splinter Cell missions, the Terminator missions.
Wait, did it Splinter Cell also? Because I know Wildlands did Splinter Cell.
They did more Splinter Cell stuff in that, and they gave you like all his sneak suit and the head goggles, and so it was like a full thing where you help Sam Fisher again, basically. And then they had more Rainbow Six stuff where like one of the operators goes AWOL and you have to work with some of the others to hunt her down. So that was kind of cool to see, like lore from Siege, which is what I was like really invested in at the time. And it's kind of like what all of those people that play Siege were asking for years, which was like a single player experience with these characters that they built up for so many years. And they still haven't really done that. But we don't talk about Extraction anyway.
Yeah, it's so sad that they kept doing the work for a game that currently has a 56 on Metacritic and a 3.0 user score. So it's like that's the big stink this game had. Yeah. That I would have cut loose and just do the next one immediately. And I'll give them this. They also did a PS5 patch, so that game can run at 60. I had been meaning to go back to it just to try it, because I know that they try to do the work, but in 2019 when I got it, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. It was like I put in my list of worst games of the year, so that's always been that game for me.
I'm still kind of glad I only bought it for $10, because I think if I'd paid any more, I would have been a lot more negative about it.
So you understand.
The fact that yeah, absolutely. I'll say everything that I've said comes with a huge grain of salt.
And you played after that because it became $10 after they finally started like removing all the things that made it a shit game. So
exactly. So yeah, that's about it. Breakpoint, long live it. It's dead, but who knows? We're gonna be getting apparently another Ghost Recon game, and Ubisoft still wants to put NFTs in their games, so they've learned nothing.
Yeah. So
anyway,
and I still like their games. That's a problem. Number 4. Even with the official death of E3 for 2022, some developers are at least solidifying and unveiling their plans to tell us more about their upcoming slate of games. While we know Ubisoft was planning a showcase around May, THQ Nordic has solidly claimed the date of August 4th, 2022 as the date where they will give us more details about their upcoming lineup of games. Keep in mind, THQ Nordic is part of the Embracer Group, which over the last 4 years has been going around and swallowing so many studios on IP that have been laying dormant or ripe for acquiring, to the tune of 60 plus different properties. So it's anyone's guess how any of these projects will be showcased here, or how many of these projects will be showcased here. Whether this presentation will happen by itself or be part of Jeff Keighley's Gamescom plans remains to be seen. Embracer Group is like literally grabbed everything from Kingdoms of Amalur to Time Splitters to Darksiders, like everything, the Saints Row, everything that's kind of like in the AA, middle A section. Everything's under Embracer Group under the THQ Nordic moniker. So there's no way, Paul, to like, let's watch this and think, what are we going to see from this? There's so many. And the new Destroy All Humans, the new SpongeBob game, the new Amalur.
I played something from THQ Nordic. I actually played Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated as well.
Because you got it from the PS Plus, right?
Yeah. So
fun game. I like that game a lot. It hits the spot. It hits the spot of something that's shut your brain off, something not too hard, not too easy, just like collectathon. Sometimes you need those kinds of games to palate cleanse.
I agree. So yeah, it's interesting because THQ Nordic has put some really good work into some of the games that used to be great and have been kind of remade, just like with Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. And then they've also made some questionable games that just weren't really great quality, and I can't think of any of them specifically off the top of my head, but
there are so many of them. We'll eventually circle back.
There's a lot of bad THQ Nordic games. So in all of this, it just feels like white noise to me. It's a toss-up, and it's like, well, talk to me when all of this lands, and we'll see what we have.
Mark your calendar, Paul. It's on August 4th. So
August 4th. I don't think I'm supposed to be up to too much, so we can see if we have a hilarious reacts to it, where we just play Destiny in the background like we did for that Gran Turismo stuff.
It wasn't Gran Turismo. It was the Forza. It was the Microsoft stuff. Yeah.
Oh gosh, which is funny how we ended up enjoying that game, even though we were kind of memeing on it at the time.
It was because it wasn't just Forza, it was just all the Microsoft stuff that it was like repeat from E3, so it's like there's nothing new here, and then here's Trebuchets for 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Trebuchet.
Man, thinking about it, man, and we're in Witch Queen because we had just gotten off from Witch Queen. So
finished Witch Queen, and then they were like, hey, we're going to talk about Age of Empires 4, and to show that, we're going to go to this live action segment where we explain how a Trebuchet is made.
Yeah.
What?
Good thing that the very next day you went gardening and missed the part of the Jeff Keighley opening night live.
Who knows? But hey, it ended up working out.
Yeah, still our most watched episode on YouTube. So
shocking, honestly.
Yeah. So final story, Paul. We haven't talked about this guy in a while, maybe just in offhand comments, but they finally said new stuff about it. Maybe not of interest, but probably a little bit for me. If you have been wondering if Halo Infinite would actually deliver some new content considering its status as a live service game, at the very least, the new season seems like it's arriving on schedule. 343 Industries has given some new details about the upcoming Season 2 for the game. Titled Lone Wolf, the new season includes new content like the new arena map named Catalyst and another big team map named Breaker. The season also includes 2 new modes, Last Spartan Standing, which is said to be a preamble to the game's Taken Battle Royale, which we previously reported here was allegedly being made by longtime studio contributor Certain Infinity, and Land Grab, which is said to be a mode akin to classic Halo mode King of the Hill. As for the game's co-op campaign, the mode is still scheduled to release sometime during Season 2, but no date has been given. Originally, it was said that on launch of Season 2 was going to be there. They pushed it. Nor any details about any news story stuff have been said. As for Forge, that's still in the docket for Season 3.
Probably going to be even later than that.
Halo. Let me put it like this.
Yeah.
Around this time in Halo 3's life cycle, we already had 3 new maps. It had the entire modes. There is no need to add more. It's insanity that a game from 2007 can have all that, and you cannot barely put in co-op here. I'm giving Halo Infinite its flowers. I like its campaign. You enjoyed it. You don't remember much of it. I love the multiplayer. You didn't play much of it. It hit the spot of something that was quick to play. I didn't have to commit much, and it gave me the dynamic gameplay that felt so good to play, that felt very true to Halo, and I just wanted more from it because I get bored really quickly. This game only has 10 maps. And it's only had 10 maps for 6 months.
They've had almost nothing outside of trying to fix their own battle pass.
Yeah, and on top of that, give you more cosmetics, but because of course we're gonna have to monetize this fucking thing. Sorry, I'm gonna got to clip that, but no, it makes me riled up because I loved Halo Infinite. It was my favorite game of this year.
More and more like the corpse of something I loved getting puppeted by somebody I hate. Not necessarily in any specific sense, but it's like, this is not what I loved. This is something that is malignant and malevolent, trying to come after it using the face of something I love. And I don't appreciate it, and that's why I think I bounced off pretty quickly, because like everything about the multiplayer was great. I loved the moment to moment, but there wasn't enough that was kind of keeping me there. There was just this underlying air of, all right, now what? It's just play the thing again. And I know there's some people that really love that whole style of just keep playing the multiplayer thing over and over again. I mean, you've got industries based on that. But then with like their campaign almost feeling like an afterthought at times just to fix other stuff, and then that was it. They have only consistently delayed things that they promised they would bring. It's just not lining up to be what I really hoped out of Halo Infinite. So it's like, come back to me in a year or two when they've finally done all this.
And that's the problem. This was the launch game for the Xbox, remember? They had to push that out after Craig made memes out of memes. Then, of course, they were like, they tried it from hell to high water to launch this thing last year because of the momentum of the Xbox finally having some games and trying to nail that synergy of like, man, imagine releasing a game that, from the looks of it, feels like a spiritual successor to Combat Evolved from visual style and the things that we're trying to aim for. It's the 20th anniversary of both the console and Halo. Let's launch it now. And the thing is that the short-term gain of them trying to launch in such a special time, it's costing them now in long term. The player base for this game, at least in the PC side, has plummeted massively to just like around 6K concurrents. And when it was like triple the size just a month ago, it's like this game just like, it needed more time. It's like, I don't understand. This is the thing that I hate about the Game Pass ecosystem and the live service model, like kind of coming in tandem. This is what releasing games that are not ready gets you, because of the low cost of entry. Here's where you're getting a minimal viable product that is functional, giving it its flowers. I still think this is the best playing Halo that 343 has put out. That is something they nailed at, and I'm not gonna take that from them. But it has come at the expense of, when you got a Halo game, it was the complete package. And not only that, you knew what to expect, new content, and it was delivered on time. The development of this game has just been a trash fire over and over.
And now that their only thing they do.
Yes, and
it's not even they have the ability to hide behind something like Remedy, who is working on like 7 things, where it's like, oh, sorry guys, this is just our off day, come back when we make the next Control or something. But this is all they do, and they still can't keep up with it.
And you know, and it's even worse because they're like, now this is our live service Halo. Microsoft just lay off the live service dick for 1 second. Just like put out games. They're like, Microsoft has been like, oh, they want more live services than almost all the first parties. Unfortunately, Sony's now going down that road and not doing it really well, with Gran Turismo 7 being a complete microtransaction disaster that they finally fixed recently. Now it's not a...
Really?
Yeah, okay. Do you get enough in-game credits that doesn't feel like they're nudging you some way, but unacceptable that they launched that way, which again is the live service problem. But it's like, I just can't undermine just the fact that I miss especially when Halo came out. It was like, Halo was renowned as like, this is the complete package. You get everything here. Call of Duty eventually became more popular, but for packages, Halo gave you even more for your buck. You don't get 4-player co-op on Call of Duty. You don't get a Forge to make your own maps like in Call of Duty. Eventually they added zombies.
It felt like a demo for a game that still hasn't come out.
Yes, it's like a promise for. Again, it's just a promise. With Microsoft, it's always the promises. They have so much, like, in the ideal world, seeing everything that they're about to swallow, especially because they're still in the midst of the Activision thing, that is seeming still like it's going ahead despite some hurdles. And Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren trying to stonewall it, it's still gonna happen. You should look that up. It's like,
I don't know if I want to, but did we even fully like acknowledge that the whole settlement thing happened?
We didn't, but it's like one of those losses got settled, but there's still other losses that Activision is still going through. So, and they're still in the middle of going through a regulatory checks. That's why it's still until 2023. It's like the promise of it's still coming, it's still there, and at this point, it's like I'm just tired of it. I want Xbox to do well. I like what they do. They clown on PlayStation on services and backwards compatibility, especially with the recent Spartacus, that ended up being. But man, like now combining with hearing what happened with the Initiative, losing a lot of that staff, and basically Crystal Dynamics taking over that, while them also announcing they're working on Tomb Raider. So are they actually working fully on the thing that they just got hired to do there to help the Initiative? And hearing that Undead Labs, there was like a recent expose, didn't put it here, there was like some in between last week that State of Decay 3 is still in pre-production. Everwild, the game from Rare that looked really cool, it still doesn't have its concept. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is what
promise it. Like if they came out with not even half of the stuff that they promised that they were making, they would probably really put Sony in a bad place. But the fact that they keep promising things and saying all the cool stuff and buying out all of the competitions only to still not come out with anything, and the few that do are like Halo Infinite out here, where a game that I was championing when it came out, and then after I finished I went, oh wait, that's it. Is like, where is it going wrong? Where is this money that Microsoft has? Where is that going into all of these problems?
And I hate because people can be like, oh, you're a Sony fan, but it's all about, just look at the proof. Look at the proof of games out. Yes, Xbox schooled PlayStation last year in the later half for having a lineup ready when PlayStation were like, yeah, here's Keen, I see you later because we got Call of Duty. So it's like, but here's the proof. It's like, people just lay off with the live service. It's like, just let it go. It's clear. Not everyone can sustain that. Because it's even more embarrassing. Them calling Halo Infinite a live service means we're going to give you more stuff more often. That's why a live service is, instead of just a DLC pack you get 2 or 3 months down the line because it's DLC. That's the problem with doing live services. That just is. And I just hate that, especially when finally it felt that Halo could finally be more popular again, because they finally got one that got as close as possible to the heyday. Because Halo 4 and 5 were good, but they're not the thing. Is like, yeah, these are just not games that you really think about much. And even now Halo Infinite is kind of falling in there, because now the whole not being able to replay campaign missions, that's still something that they said they were going to patch. The only way to replay that game is to replaying the whole open world again. And it's an open world that, especially in lieu of the new open worlds we got, and it puts it on blast. It's like, yeah, this is not like up to par to what you would expect from like an Elden Ring and even a Horizon, like in an open world environment. Cool, they made Halo work an open world, especially with the grappling hook. That was so fun to move around. They made it so cool, but
it was
the no biome diversity. Even some of the new maps, the 2 maps that they're gonna add, they don't look that different from the other 2 maps. It's like, add some snow for Christ's sake. Add some snow.
Do anything, please.
Yes, just do anything. Just get it right. Microsoft, please get it right. I want you to, you're putting the screws to the other ones. You're doing a lot of things right, but you're missing you're running the score. Like, you're basically a sports team that knows how to run the ball, and you're failing to score. Like, in the things that matter. Obviously, all their services are helping. People they're cutting the distance, because obviously all those per consumer moves eventually are gonna make an effect, and having Xbox Series S so widely available makes it so much easier. But just finally nail that final part, especially because they have the amount of games they're gonna have. They have they're gonna have a variety that PlayStation doesn't have right now. PlayStation do their kind of games so well.
Yeah.
But we need the other side to show them we can do all the variety of games and do them as well as Sony does their one game. Then there's like no contest. It's like, and they give you those games for free. That's why I mentioned it when we talked about Spartacus. It's like, I will be a full believer that the Game Pass model is like the way to go for like everyone if we get quality games on the level of the ones we get over on Sony. That's when I eat my words. So far, seeing all this mess, I'm like, I'm still being proven. And there's a reason why some PlayStation loyalists remain there despite all Microsoft is trying to do to bring people over to that side. They're doing it not with the games, but with the pro consumer. Hey, come play here for $1. So, and now they're talking about raising the price, by the way.
Oh, well, man.
Yes,
really?
raising the price of Game Pass.
It's already, what is it, at like 16
It's 15.
and change?
It's 15. It's 16 and change if you have if you're in a state that charges tax. If you're not in a state that charges tax, it's $14.99 a month, which is a good value. But they say that after the Activision deal goes through, that's when they're gonna raise the price, which of course.
Yeah, because I mean they're gonna put everything that Activision probably did just on there. I don't know if I have anything left in me to even talk about Halo after this. I
wanted to play that.
At least we have the show.
Yes, they do have MLB The Show.
No, I mean literally the Halo show.
Yeah, I mean the third episode was good, but my God, there's some heresy happening in the Halo TV series. But we'll leave it at that. Halo, please be better. I need it to be better. You had the potential, and now all the trying to get to that anniversary is costing you now. So, Paul, we ended on the downbeat there, but that's it for the show.
But hey, they announced Kingdom Hearts 4, guys. Don't forget, that happened like an hour ago.
Yes. So, Paul, where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter. I've got new art going up there lately because all of my art is getting put into that game that's coming out at the end of the month. They have a trailer and a Steam page now. Go check that out. It's called Sea of Choices. It's rough. It's PS1, but it is really good music and all right everything else. Yeah,
the art works. I've seen the trailer. I tested Paul. I was like, yeah, I can see like where because you gave me the warning about like the in-game graphics. Like I can see that, but at the very least, there's like text that also has the art there. And I was like,
yeah.
If only this could have been pixel art in its entirety, but it was gonna take him much more longer to do.
We're actually doing some work right now with somebody who's a friend of ours doing 3D art in Blender to redo a lot of like the skyboxes and the texture work. So it's apparently gonna look a lot nicer because he was like brute forcing a lot of it, and he is not a 3D guy. So we had somebody that's actually working on that to make it look cleaner, because I was like, buddy, we need a little bit more refinement out of this.
Yeah.
So
you live in a world where you can get downvoted really quickly for something that doesn't look up to par. So
however, I have learned from first experience that his passion is infectious, and if you listen to his music while you're going through the world, you can almost forget a lot of the problems because you just start feeling like a 10-year-old playing a PS1 game again. And I was like, all right, I can understand why there's enough people that are like sold on this, even as somebody who's a little bit more jaded as myself in this industry right now. So Mr. Hiccups himself, where can they find you? At
_Segovia on Twitter, at Alejandro Segovia 93 on Instagram, and at thecriticalcorner.com, which is past 30K views.
I heard, and congratulations, my dude.
I have to clean the previous articles to get AdSense working because I have viewership now. God damn it, with this hiccups.
I mean, you got like 80-something concurrent people from just like one day, and then like every week is like 300 or 400 hits.
And I'm not even promoting, so it's like it's doing something right.
You're doing something right. I'm curious to see the breakdown of that in the future, but yeah, again, congratulations for all that.
Yeah, so that's it for the show, Paul. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy, everyone, your Easter. Dang it. Your Easter. Enjoy your Easter week, everyone, if you have vacation or just Good Friday. And Paul, have fun moving your stuff. And people, this is the X button. Remember, like, subscribe. Enjoy the hiccups. And remember, people,
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Adios.